If you're tuned in right now on February 13, 2026, just 1 week after the shocking events in Nuuk, Greenland's icy capital, you need to hear this. Canada has boldly planted its flag on foreign soil in the Arctic, opening a full-fledged consulate amid escalating threats from President Donald Trump himself. This isn't some routine diplomatic ribbon-cutting. It's a defiant power play that's already sent shockwaves through Washington, provoked fury in Moscow, and forced Beijing to recalibrate its shadowy northern ambitions. Picture the scene unfolding last Friday. Under a biting polar wind, high-ranking Canadian officials, including the Governor-General and Foreign Minister Anita Anand, gathered with Greenlandic leaders to hoist the maple leaf high above the city center, singing "O Canada" in a spontaneous burst of solidarity that echoed across the frozen fjords. Greenlandic voices rang out in appreciation, calling it a beacon of reassurance for their isolated island nation, promising to reciprocate with their own diplomatic outpost in Ottawa soon. A simple yet profound symbol of unbreakable bonds in a region teetering on the edge of chaos. What makes this move explode onto the global stage like a hypersonic missile test? Because the Arctic isn't just melting ice anymore. It's the hottest battleground for the next half-century of world dominance, packed with untapped trillions in rare minerals, oil, gas, and game-changing shipping lanes that could slash Asia-Europe transit times by thousands of miles. President Trump, fresh off his 2025 inauguration, has reignited his obsession with Greenland, thundering in January White House remarks and Davos speeches that America must seize it, by negotiation if possible, but, whether they like it or not, to block Russia and China from turning it into their North American foothold. He dismissed Danish oversight as weak, labeled the island essentially part of North America, and warned of unacceptable alternatives short of full U.S. ownership, even floating military options if talks stall. Denmark and Greenland pushed back hard, but Trump's rhetoric, echoing his 2019 bid but amplified by re-election swagger, has fractured alliances, with NATO's Arctic flank suddenly exposed as adversaries circle like wolves. Canada didn't blink. They accelerated plans announced in late 2024, timing the February 6 opening to coincide with Trump's saber-rattling, dispatching not low-level envoys, but top brass aboard a Coast Guard vessel, flanked by indigenous representatives from their own northern territories. This consulate isn't a token office. It's a fortified hub with consular services, intelligence-gathering potential, economic outreach, and direct lines to Ottawa's decision-makers, embedding Canada irreversibly into Greenland's political and security web. France followed suit the same day, doubling foreign outposts in Nuuk and signaling a Western middle power bloc forming to counterbalance U.S. unpredictability. Greenlanders themselves are buzzing, not with fear, but excitement. "We're not alone," locals told reporters, viewing the influx as a spotlight on their push for greater autonomy from Denmark, while rejecting Trump's coercive vision. One Nuuk resident quipped it's positive pressure, making the world notice their strategic prize. But peel back the ceremony's pomp, and the stakes reveal a high-stakes chess game, where every move redraws the map. Whoever masters the Arctic wields leverage over global trade routes, energy supplies, and military choke points. The Northern Sea route alone could eclipse Suez and Panama combined, as climate thaw unlocks year-round access. Canada, with 70% of its coastline kissing the Arctic Ocean and vast northern lands above the 60th parallel, sees this as existential. Their home turf, their sovereignty, now openly contested by a re-elected ally turned wildcard. Trump's Greenland fixation threatens not just Denmark, but the NATO bedrock Canada relies on, where U.S. whims could bully smaller partners into submission, eroding the rules-based order that's held for decades. Ottawa's response? A seismic pivot, pledging billions in defense hikes toward 5% of GDP, doubling Arctic troops, and fast-tracking infrastructure to match the most hawkish alliance members, signaling they're done playing second fiddle. Those watchful eyes are scanning a horizon darkening by the day, where Russia's Arctic fortress expands like a shadow across the ice shelf, no longer content with quiet patrols, but aggressively reshaping the battlefield. Since early 2025, Moscow has unleashed over 33 military drills in the high north, centering on the Kola Peninsula's nuclear submarine lair, protected by layered air, sea, and coastal defenses from the Northern Fleet's Murmansk hub. Where Atlantic currents keep the Barents Sea navigable, Russian icebreakers, outnumbering NATO's fleet, carve paths for hypersonic tests and simulated seizures of sea lanes, while reopened Soviet bases bristle with radar, missiles, and year-round ports funneling Siberian gas to global markets. This isn't defensive posturing. It's a blueprint for control, with rail lines snaking minerals from tundra mines to export terminals, binding Russia's economy to polar supremacy, and daring intruders with nuclear signaling from under the ice. Canadian pilots scramble weekly as Russian bombers buzz airspace boundaries, submarines ghost through claimed waters, and exercises rehearse blockades. Constant probes, eroding response times, and testing resolve without firing a shot. Layered atop this menace creeps China's velvet-gloved grip, patient as permafrost thaw, but relentless in pursuit of the polar Silk Road, threading Asia-Europe shortcuts through Arctic waters. With no native claim, Beijing self-anoints as a near-Arctic power, dispatching research flotillas that double as survey vessels, while rare earth juggernauts snag stakes in Greenland's Kvanefjeld megamine, the world's richest untapped deposit critical for EV batteries, drones, and hypersonics. Past bids for nuke airports and satellite relays were thwarted by vetoes, but billions flow into joint ventures and processing deals, turning economic lifelines into leverage. Greenland's fiscal fragility makes it ripe. Independence dreams demand cash, and without rivals, China locks in influence via one port contract at a time, embedding for decades ahead. Their playbook avoids fanfare, no armadas, just investors whispering autonomy, while eyeing governance seats to rewrite rules favoring Shanghai over sovereignty. Even America's shadow looms unpredictably under President Trump, whose Greenland fixation isn't bluster, but a strategic imperative, framed as NATO's salvation against dual adversaries. Revived post-inauguration, his vows escalated to threats of force if Denmark balks, canceling visits and branding Greenland up for grabs in a North American security calculus. This volatility unravels alliance trust. If a superpower strong-arms kin over whim, what safeguards Canada's vast frontier? Ottawa perceives multi-vector peril, Russian steel, Chinese silk, U.S. impulse, accelerating not hypotheticals, but live incursions, where hesitation cedes the board. Canada's riposte surges with unprecedented force, an $80 billion defense infusion, rocketing spending to 5% GDP parity with NATO elites, doubling northern deployments from Nunavut bases to multinational flanks. Ice-hardened frigates, drone swarms, and forward sensors fortify coasts, while operations sync with NORAD but hedge unilateral drifts. This pivot acknowledges homefront realities, indigenous stewards demanding voice, transforming rhetoric into radars and resilience that scream commitment without surrender. Enter NATO's awakening, long fixated southward on Baltic tanks, while the North Atlantic's namesake flank slumbered as frozen footnote. Canada's drumbeat urges permanence for the freshly minted Arctic Sentry mission, unveiled February 11, to orchestrate drills under unified command. No longer secondary, the High North demands ISR upgrades and Arctic-hardened forces, with rim states allied against Russia's outlier. Ottawa leads by deed, Eastern bolsters, but Northern surges rebalance the ledger, proving evolution beyond percentages to polar prowess. Middle power alchemy fuels this surge, where Canada, Denmark, and Greenland transcend size via synergy, crafting deterrence webs, economic firewalls, security quilts sharing intel sans dominance. Greenland eyes autonomy sans isolation. Canada's presence hedges vulnerability, respecting self-rule while investing sans strings, as recent huddles affirm mutual offices and dialogues. Denmark welcomes the relay, lacking Arctic muscle, viewing Ottawa's foothold as burden-shared bulwark. Trump's chaos playbook crumbles against such architecture. Unclosable doors defy tweets, institutionalized ties outlive inaugurations. Canada sidestepped paralysis, formalizing before fallout, shifting from reactive flinch to foundational fortitude. This model ripples. Norway eyes patrols, Iceland radar nets, new Nordics calibrate. Witnessing Ottawa's stand proves coalitions trump coercion. Yet equilibrium teeters. Militarization begets arms races, dialogues fray. Canada navigates nimbly, presence without panic, preserving cooperative norms where Russia still sits, fragile forums for de-escalation amid thaw's dual edge. Risks abound. Russian reprisals, Chinese FDI surges, US barbs. But inaction's toll towers higher. Vacuums filled by foes, architectures alien. By acting, Ottawa claims unignorable credibility, shaping discourse from participant to pace-setter. Zoom outward, and Canada's gambit unmasks eroding post-war order. Borders annexed, islands militarized, allies menaced. Ottawa reinforces, sovereignty as shield, pax as steel, proving middle tiers can buttress proactively. Leadership manifests in stewardship. Ice melt unleashing roots accelerates collapse. Habitats shatter, indigenous lifeways strain, feedback loops fevering the globe. Canada's blueprint marries security to sustainability, research stations, climate sentinels, co-management with Inuit knowledge, moral high ground transmuting into diplomatic leverage. This rarity, permanence via principle, outshines empire's flash. Election-proof infrastructure, slow-build legacies weathering storms. Arctic watchers pivot. As warming hastens competition crests, Canada's template whispers viability for managed rivalry sans cataclysm. Pressures persist, but solitude ends. Infrastructure, allies, blueprint arm Ottawa indelibly. Permanence triumphs slogans, strategy eclipses spectacle. A middle power's refusal to fade proves preparation's quiet thunder. Stability beckons through accountability, reasoned restraint yielding resilient peace. Share thoughts below. Critical minds sharpen us all.